Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology, and this is episode 53. And today's date is October 10th, Saturday, October 10th. And I haven't made a video for a while for a number of reasons. I won't go into all of them, but one of them was that I live in one of the areas on the West Coast that has had forest fires, and so my attention has been on sort of more important things, to be honest with you. So things are back to normal, the rains have returned, the skies are clear, and so we'll use this episode to give you an update on the markets and on the election. So specifically in this video, I want to make a comment about a couple big corporations have just recently purchased sizable amount of Bitcoin for their reserve funds, spending some of their cash for Bitcoin. And is this a portent of things to come? We'll look at the election charts of Trump, the astrology charts of Trump and Joe Biden, and then we'll get into our market updates, and we'll see what's coming up over the next couple weeks from an astrological perspective. I do weekly, on a very regular basis, update my charts and give the key dates, the astro dates for each market at my website, astroindicator.com. I also have a link to my email if you're interested in a personal consultation in your individual astrology, which can be very helpful. If you know what your own astrology cycles are and when to maybe reduce your risk in your trading portfolio, or to maybe jump on board in a greater and bigger way. I'm not going to tell you to do that, but I can tell you when your cycles are more favorable than not, and how long those cycles will last. Okay, so a while back, I did report on this company, MicroStrategy, purchasing $425 million of Bitcoin. And then just this past week, the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, who's also, I think he's also the head of Square, a payment system, the Square aspect of his business put up 1% of their total assets into Bitcoin as well. And when you stop to think about it, all of a sudden I kind of, I stopped and said, what's going on here? What would happen if this continues? Why are these companies doing this? Well, the reason they're doing this is that the outlook for the US dollar, because of all the money printing, because of all the stimulus and the debt, the outlook for the US dollar is such that it's very, very likely to go down in value. Now, with that forecast, these companies, particularly these companies that are sitting on a lot of cash, they have to ask themselves, is this a smart thing to do? To be sitting on cash, okay? What can I do instead? Because when the dollar drops, typically what happens is that inflation, it's axiomatic, inflation goes up. The price of things goes up, okay? Well, that is sort of the longer term forecast. We have a lot of elements in our society right now which are could lead to a depression first, because of the amount of joblessness that we have in the world, which is higher than the Great Depression. Those things, all the companies closing, et cetera, those things are deflationary, okay? But at the same time, all indications from the Fed are that they will continue, they would like to continue printing money to try to keep the boat afloat, okay? Well, that's all well and good on one hand, but at a certain time, that's going to affect the US dollar. And these companies are asking themselves, what can we do to protect ourselves given the likelihood of the dollar dropping in value? And so some companies have a lot of cash, in reserve. Apple may be near the top of the list as $102 billion in cash sitting, not doing anything. And if inflation goes up, in essence, what is happening to that cash is that it's just a bad investment. It's losing value to whatever extent the inflation rate is rising. Okay? Well, they could go to gold. 50 years ago, it was quite the norm for a person, an institution, to have upwards to 5% of their portfolio in gold. And then gold fell out of favor, became, looked down upon by the likes of Warren Buffett and so forth. And now that seems to be shifting. That's my point here. These companies are looking for something that will go up in value and will preserve their cash reserves. So they're looking at Bitcoin, they're looking at gold. Warren Buffett just bought $600 million worth of Barrick mining. And this is after disparaging gold for years and years and years. And, his company also is sitting on a huge pile of cash. Well, the final comment here about this subject is that both Bitcoin and gold have limited supply. And currently, these larger investors, these institutional investors, pension funds, etc., only a handful have, 1% in gold. Only, a tiny amount have Bitcoin. So it might, you might want to model what these people are doing, what these larger, investment companies or just corporations are doing with their cash, because they know that just holding cash may not be the smartest place to be, in the near future. So something to think about here. Okay, let's look at, this is Joe Biden's astrology chart with his transits in the outer ring. Okay, the position of the planets in this outer ring. His natal chart is in the middle here. And I set the transits for early in the morning, the day after the election. And, somewhat arbitrary, because I'm not really sure if the things will be settled and determined even at that point. But let's just, for the sake of seeing what's going on in these two individuals' charts, let's just pick that date. And I've, in the past, you can go back to my other videos earlier this year, and I've talked about Joe Biden. Even going into last year, there were things about Joe Biden's chart that just did not look favorable to me. The day that he started his campaign, over a year ago, was on a Saturn station. His very first rally was on a Pluto station. And, if you're into astrology, those are just usually not the most auspicious things, moments to start something. Well, anyway, earlier this year, I could see that the transit of Saturn, which you see right there, was approaching a square, a 90-degree square to his sun. And what happened here? Excuse me. Let's see what did I do wrong here? I'm trying to do this. Okay, sorry about that. So there's the square. Okay. Earlier this year, it was exact. Saturn went into Aquarius, went to 1 degree Aquarius. It was still squaring. It has been going retrograde. I think a couple weeks ago, it went direct. It's at 26 degrees. And now, on the night of the election, it is moving again towards this square. Okay, it is getting stronger in his life. If he wins the election, in my line of reasoning, it seems quite odd that he would probably be feeling sometimes the frustration or the depression or the difficulties that come with a Saturn moon aspect, okay? That doesn't quite make sense to me, okay? Because it's getting closer at that point in time to being exact again. So to me, that doesn't look great for Joe, okay? But, there are other things going on. He could still win, etc. I'm not being definite here. Something else that's going on in this chart is that, let's see if I can hit the right button. He's got Sun exactly conjunct Mars on that night. So you blend these two energies. His identity is going to be mixing with his Mars energy. And that could be, could indicate a new beginning in some fashion. Normally, people feel, upset. People feel more angry. People feel, hot under the collar, etc. It does kind of momentarily give them a lot of energy, but it's usually not an upbeat sort of state of mind. So I'm not sure about what's going on there. The big thing for Joe is that his transit of Saturn has been stuck here for a year in the second house. Normally with the transit of Saturn, which takes 28 years to go around the chart, it kind of coincides, in a rough sense, it coincides to different levels of accomplishment or recognition in the world. And often when people, at whatever age, have Saturn going through the 9-year period when it moves through this first quadrant, they are less, on some level, less involved in the world. They're kind of working on themselves. They are, learning more about, they're shifting their interest in some fashion. But normally their success level isn't as high relative to when Saturn was transiting the top of the chart. So historically in astrology, this would be an unusual point to have Saturn transiting for a person to be elected president. Okay, that's one of the big things that's sort of suggesting that he may not win. Okay. In addition, Saturn right here is opposite Jupiter. Again, it's sort of undermining his good fortune, undermining his sense of grace, his sense of opportunity. So the big things are that, and then as I just was, kind of discussing this square between, it's activating this square of the moon. So, I think this has been a really rough year on Joe and his self-image and his mental health and all that, and I kind of feel sorry for the guy. So the last thing I'll comment here, and then I'll move on. We'll look at what's going on with Mr. Trump. In general, we have a transit on that particular day, we have a transit of Venus. This is applying to everybody, not to just Joe. We have a transit of Venus and Uranus, okay? It's 150 degrees. It's an in conjunction. So this could be full of surprises and shocks and very unusual things happening around this election. And just a word of warning, people I think are already preparing themselves for that, but it shows up in the astrology as well, okay? I just wanted to quickly point that out. Okay, moving on to Trump. Here's the Donald's chart in the middle. Again, you can look back at other videos of me talking about his chart. Leo ascendant, very obvious. Mars on his ascendant, very obvious. Sun leading planet is Uranus. I mean, the guy is unpredictable. He's sort of eccentric. Other people who don't like him would say, oh, he's a loose cannon, etc., etc. Well, that's all the Uranus energy that he has. But he's very independent, which I think can be a plus in his position. That's the Uranus as well. Something that doesn't clearly show up in the chart is that he was born on a Jupiter station. Okay, very strong. He has a lot of confidence in this chart, in himself, kind of an expanded ego. He's always using the term huge, which would be something totally with someone as strong, Jupiter would say, everything is the greatest. So you see these things in astrology in a more sort of objective, clear way than, what we get from the news. At least that's my bias. So let's go through these things. He has Saturn in the 5th transiting versus Joe in the 2nd. Saturn in the 5th is a little better. It's not great. I would expect Saturn to be up on the top of the chart somewhere for someone to be, to gain that level of, of recognition or gain that level of achievement that is reflected in, winning an election. So it's better than the 2nd, but, it's not an ideal position. And for a while now, he's had Saturn opposite, transiting opposite Venus. But he has a Saturn-Venus conjunction in his chart. He is used to this energy, okay? This is not something new to him. In addition, I was watching when he went into the hospital a week ago, and again, the transit I'm looking at here are November 4th. I was looking at the transit of Saturn, and it was exact when he went into the hospital. In addition, Venus, which is down here in November, had just crossed. He did his debate when Venus conjunct Mars, which was, if you're debating someone, you want, having a Venus-Mars conjunction was probably, very reflective of that. But the Saturn-Venus opposition, I think, took its toll on his energy level. And so, in addition, in his chart, Saturn has something to do a little bit with his health, because it's one of the rulers of the 6th house. He has Aquarius on the 6th house cusp. The 6th house deals with health. You look to where Saturn is, the transit of Saturn. So in his chart, the transit of Saturn has a little bit to do with his health, and it was exactly opposite Venus when he was ill. To comment further on this, on the night of the election, that Saturn is no longer perfectly in opposition. It is now passed. It's still in opposition, but it's not exact, and it is waning in energy. Okay, versus when I was saying Joe Biden's Saturn is closing and becoming stronger in its square with Joe's moon, which is not good for that. So Saturn, he still has Saturn opposite Venus, not great, but it's been going on. The thing that's a little bit concerning, if I, was going to say something, is that he's got Saturn in conjunct his Mars. That's exact, okay? And this could be, again, really be something that affects his health, more so than anything else, because of the rulership of Saturn to his 6th house. So that's something to look at. For a long time, he's had Pluto opposite Saturn's, because Pluto's right here, and I could draw that in really quickly. So but this has been going on for a long time, and I'm looking at things that would probably be distinctive at that moment, in early November. That would indicate some clarity, some change. So I don't put a lot of stock in that. Now, a faster moving planet that currently is at maybe 17 degrees. If you look at my cursor, Jupiter is at like 17 degrees Capricorn now. In a month, it'll have moved up to 21 and be in conjunction to Pluto. Okay, so this to me is the one thing that really stands out in Trump's chart, because he has a strong Jupiter. It was stationary when he was born. It is in trine. If you track me here, he has a Jupiter trine that Uranus, which I was speaking of earlier, which is very strong in his chart as well. It's the leading planet. It's the first planet rising on the day that he was born. That gives him so much of this eccentricity, okay? Well, that energy is working with also a very strong Jupiter. And now we have this transit of Jupiter is, look at this, is now in conjunct, working. When you get any sort of 30-degree angle in aspect, you get two energies that are then working together. Some energies have difficulty working together, and some of that demand to work and blend together is stronger than other times. Well, this is an inconjunction. Maybe it's not as strong as a square or a trine or something, but it is strong. And so we have a blending of that Jupiter energy with his sun, with his moon on that day, transiting his sun. He has a moon-sun conjunction happening early on the 4th. Okay. This is very positive. This suddenly adds the element of, luck and good fortune and, expansion of, possibilities and opportunity and, sense of grace. And as I've said before, many things, that stands out to me in his setup here. He has a number of other things challenging his health, but this Jupiter energy has been moving towards that position to become conjunct with Pluto. It changes the energy of Pluto, and in addition, it is aspecting his sun. So to me, that really stands out. So I think that's about it. I could, briefly, he also has Mercury trining his sun on that day. It's, it is a positive in some regard, but it's the Jupiter that stands out in the Donald's chart. So anyway, that's all I have. I think it's could be a close call with surprises. As you can tell, I think, even though the polls, Trump is way down in the polls, there's something that could surprise us all. And his chart, just standing back from it, looks stronger in many respects, other than some concerns about his health. It looks stronger than Joe Biden's. Okay, let's look at some charts here. Again, I'm going to go over these in detail, but I have the dates on my website. Okay, this is the Dow. And if you're not familiar with this, okay, I combine the astrology with technical analysis. These horizontal lines are typical support and resistance areas. We got RSI down here, overbought, oversold, MACD similar. The horizontal lines relate to the astrology of this particular market. And normally they're going to indicate a change in direction or an extra bullish energy. Predicting, in my style of doing astrology, predicting sharp market downturns, there's really only very few indicators that tell me that could happen. The vast majority, I find, have a little bit more of a bullish, suggestion, indication. So going back to this line right here, which was, let's see, when was that? The 5th, okay, October 5th, which was last Monday, and then even the one right before that, which was September 29th, they were both quite strong bullish energies for this market. We had what in technical analysis would be called a descending triangle. If we were going to break out of that triangle, even though there are many fundamental reasons why we shouldn't be this high, with this market, with the debt that we have, the unemployment, so forth and so on. But we had two very bullish astrology indicators coming up. We broke out, which is quite typical. Something significant usually happens on these dates, okay? We broke out of this triangle, and this last one is a particularly strong astrological bullish combination. And that happened right there. You see that green bar, and it creates some momentum. We've broken through this horizontal resistance line, and it would not surprise me at all if we come up to this last high in this market and try to test it. At a certain point, this bullish energy starts to wane, the technicals take over, and you just have to see what happens. And then you play the technicals as well. You combine these two forms of analysis. Now, upcoming on October 16th, we have, it's actually the 15th and 16th. I just didn't want to draw two lines in there real close. We have, again, some things that are historically sort of bullish, but they're not as strong as these lines. And so this could end up being a major hurdle. That level, this 29,100, 29,200 level in the Dow. I don't see in the astrology in the next couple months days that are as bullish as these two, were. So let's just see how long this rally lasts and see if the energy of these upcoming dates, which again are the 15th and 16th and the 27th, see if it can be enough to get the market over this old high. Okay, here's gold. Now gold and silver, they interact just like Bitcoin and Ethereum. One chart, one market can influence the other. We've had this downward trending channel that we've been bouncing back and forth on. And sometimes you can count the numbers. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we just bounced off of basically 4, or you could even add that in. We are testing that resistance point on Friday. That was a big bounce on Friday because something was happening in the silver market, except we are not over the 50-day moving average, and we haven't really cleared this trend line, channel line resistance yet. Now, in gold, on actually Sunday afternoon, and then again on Tuesday, actually, there is, I just drew it in for the 12th because there's a couple things going on. We have sort of a minor bullish energy. So we need to really see if it's going to be strong enough to take us through this resistance zone. Big resistance with the 50-day moving average. If we can clear the 50-day moving average, this market is going higher. We don't exactly have a big bullish date until, oddly enough, the day after the election, November 4th. Okay? On that particular day, it's quite a bullish, historically quite strong for gold. We'll see how it plays out, but this week will be quite telling. This is a long consolidation pattern. Sometimes when you break out of a consolidation pattern, sometimes you go higher and then you come back, and it's called a back test, and you drop back down and test that zone again. Very likely that could happen, and it may trade sideways for a while. But let's see what's going on the silver chart, because I think it's the silver chart that was influencing gold just within the last couple days. Okay, I stuck this in here. This is the gold miners, junior miners chart. It has a similar consolidation pattern. If you want to count the bounces off support and resistance, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 again. That's very not unusual. That's kind of typical. If we break through that level, you're going to see a lot of mining stocks, go higher by, a significant amount. I won't get into measuring it right now, but watch this closely if you happen to be interested in investing in gold mining stocks or the juniors. Okay, here's the silver stock. I said silver went up. It had a fairly strong bullish indicator, the last two, and it definitely responded on the 8th and 9th. Okay, and let's see. But it doesn't really have a lot going until possibly the 16th. And let's see here. I didn't know if I even drew that in. So there's possibly on the 16th, and then you get into the 30th. There's a lot of volatility. Okay. So the next upcoming dates you want to look at, and sorry, I didn't draw this in, but you want to look at the 16th, which is Friday, and the 30th for silver. Okay? Or you can go to my website and check it out. But it definitely has responded to the last two dates. And now it's in rally mode. It's above this key resistance zone. It has the 50-day average and the next, trend line to break through. If it gets through this area, then technical traders see that as a pure buying opportunity. So watch this closely. We are, way oversold. We just had a crossover here down at the bottom in the MACD. This is also a signal to buy. Okay, some people use that as a signal to buy. I'm not suggesting that. This is not trading advice. I'm just telling you how some traders operate. Okay, but the astrology was right on. Okay, let's look at Bitcoin. A lot of things. This is what could be happening to gold and silver. It happened to Bitcoin, okay? I think Bitcoin was responding to, on an astrological level, and you're just going to have to take my word for it, to things that were going on in the Ethereum chart, okay? Because Bitcoin, it had something happening back on September 23rd, but I didn't think it was that strong, but it just, the market, you can judge the strength of some of these markets by how they respond to the astrology, just like you judge and you assess the strength of a market as to how it responds to news. Okay, so it definitely bounced off this low, and when it came up to stiff resistance, I think in combination with what was going on with Ethereum, it was able to take out these levels. A lot of actually good news came out for Bitcoin. I was referring to that earlier about the corporations, investing in Bitcoin. But this is quite bullish. It's highly likely that this market will test this next level. Okay. Upcoming on the 18th, we could have some of a reversal pattern short term. Okay. Because as we get into November, Bitcoin, like gold, Bitcoin's chart has a number of astrological signs that typically support higher prices. Okay, so this is significant. This is probably going to, I wouldn't be surprised if this happens to gold this next week. This breaking out of this channel pattern is going to happen to silver, and I see higher prices ahead. Okay, Ethereum. Ethereum had a green line earlier this week. It took a little bit of while to break through. It has broken out of the downtrend channel, a couple resistance lines. It's just a little bit above the 50-day moving average. And it has some, a stronger astrology coming up on the 15th. Now, we may have a back test. Again, I referenced this earlier. Often when you break out of a pattern, you get a rally and then suddenly it looks like it loses steam and it comes back down and touches this line. It's called a back test. It's something that it happens so often, you tend to trust it. It's not something to get freaked out about. It can be a buying opportunity if you miss the breakout. Knowing what the astrology is for this upcoming Thursday, October 15th, this could be the back test day in Ethereum. It has that kind of energy signature, okay? So anyway, again, we're not done yet. Here's the US dollar. Okay, the US dollar is a fascinating chart. If you know the astrology and know technicals, it's had a number of very strong astrological days which it has not responded to. Historically, it had. It's because this market is, I think, inherently getting weaker. Now, we have 2 days just coming up on Monday and Tuesday. And on Tuesday, or actually on Wednesday, a very strong one, the second green line is very strong. If that doesn't take us above this green line and we happen to fall below this horizontal level, I just have to tell you, gold and silver are going to take off, Bitcoin is going to take off, and you may see more corporations jumping on, getting out of cash. This is a key week for the US dollar, in my opinion, because the astrology is there for a bounce. And if it doesn't happen, it's a signal that this market is really losing steam. Okay, that's it for today. I've been researching financial astrology for 25 years, a master's degree in psychology. This is my email if you have a question. This is my website if you want to go back and get those dates down and review things. I don't go into so much detail, but I do comment on each market. I do accept Bitcoin donations if you feel so inclined. And please, if you like this video, hit the like button. And because I'm somewhat irregular in posting videos, it can be helpful if you find this, this information interesting. It would be probably constructive or helpful to you to consider subscribing. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.